One of the senators who may be against it, it's hard to tell, it's hard to pin him down, is Republican Senator Bob Corker. Bob Corker, of course, now an outspoken critic of the Trump administration. He is not running for re-election in Tennessee. And he is the architect, not the sole architect, of a new bill that would, what is the word they're using? Be a stopgap?
It's a backstop. They're trying to do the backstop thing. Would
be a backstop if the current tax bill does not meet the exaggerated magical growth that they say it will. So it's funny, but again, it's more theatrics. It's an acknowledgement to me from Bob Corker, although he won't just say it. Hey man, you know it's not going to, right? Because you've made it clear to us that while you're wrong on every issue, you're not a moron, right? And so he knows, and so now he has come up with this plan. He says with this backstop, that way you're in a situation where you're not creating deficits should the projections laid out not turn out to be real. Now we'll take that first graphic 4 here for more of Bob Corker. The change, no, this is from Alice Ollstein from Talking Points memo. The change that they're seeking would create a backstop or trigger mechanism to undo some of the deepest tax cuts in the bill after several years if that magic economic growth doesn't materialize. But again, a reminder there that it's several years down the road that they would still let this play out before this would kick in.
And they haven't said what day, what year, how much. Is it 0.4% growth, every year after year, year over year compounded? Or is it like, well, in 10 years, if we reach the expiration date of some of these tax cuts and it doesn't work, well, then we'll let the tax cuts expire.
Well, right, or they'll raise taxes, right? Which.
Yeah, so there's a lot you can put in there depending on how you think the government's gonna go. If you're gonna put in there and be like, all right, it's gonna take us at least 12 years to rebuild the Republican Party, or 5-6 years. We're gonna put it on the Democrats if they do end up winning the House. We'll put triggers in there so that suddenly it's on them and they're going to have to raise taxes to give us a reason and something to rally around in any midterm election that could happen along the way.
Yeah, so then they should, again, and so then when that time comes, just raise taxes. Say it, mean it, explain why. Here's what Corker says. This is graphic 5. We've been working throughout the entire Thanksgiving break. I'm certain that's not true. Working closely with the administration and some members of the Finance Committee to design a trigger or a backstop in the event the revenues are not there. There's a way to recoup them, as we were saying. So then we go back to Talking Points memo and Alice Ollstein, who says Corker wouldn't say, as Brett was getting at, Corker wouldn't say exactly what tax cuts the trigger would undo or when it would kick in. Both of those seem like significant parts of, I don't know, a piece of congressional legislation that maybe you'd want to get to, though he did suggest there could be multiple triggers in the 10 years after the bill becomes law. So a decade from now, when the magical growth hasn't occurred in any of the 10 years, there might be something there. Let's get the final little bit here from Alice Ollstein. Reports by independent groups, including the Tax Policy Center, have found that even with the predicted economic growth, the tax bill would still balloon the deficit by more than $1.2 trillion, enough to trigger deep automatic cuts to Medicare and other federal programs if Congress doesn't vote to waive its own budget rules. Again, a reminder to the Republicans, this is a win-win. Either they get the magical growth and they're heroes, they cut taxes. It's never done that, it won't do it here, right? Or that happens. And then it triggers automatic cuts to Medicare and other federal programs that they're very comfortable cutting and always want to cut, but are most of them uncomfortable, except for a few members of the Tea Party coming out and saying, no, we'd like to cut this. We don't want this. We either want to privatize, we don't want any part of it. We don't think this is the federal government's job. This is always what they want. This is why this whole debate is so dishonest.
Yeah, and they also get to paint the Democrats as people who are really hoping the economy doesn't grow. You guys are really hoping so we can repeal these taxes, so we can raise taxes on people, and you guys are just chomping at the bit that the economy doesn't grow. Another way to characterize these backstops also is it's a timer. It's a timer on trickle-down economics, and I hate to break it to these guys, but that timer's been running since the 80s. And when is enough enough? Like that I feel like a broken record on, but that's what they're getting at.
Again, I'm struck by the dishonesty and ultimately because the Republicans have figured out how to play the media in the difficulty that the mainstream press always has in calling lies and calling deceit, or calling what we know. This is what they want. They don't They're not interested if those government programs fail. They want deep cuts in Medicare. For a while they made it clear, but that backfired. So Brett, I agree that they'd like to paint the Democrats as anti-growth, but mostly what they want to paint the Democrats as not interested in the things that not you, but the voters that they're talking to are interested in. That these are a lot of people who want to live off the government teat. These are minorities, these are poor people, these are people who are draining us, who are dragging us down slowly. And that ultimately, you're either going to stand with them, that's who the Democrats want, they just want to arm, well, actually the Republicans would like the arming, but they want to let illegals flood into the country, and then that's why I think that's in this tweet too. They want to let illegals flood into this country and drain our system. And that's who Democratic voters are, and that's who their constituents are.
I think the growth number is too general a number, because the Republicans, when they pitch this new economic plan, they're saying that certain things will happen to trigger growth. Why don't we make the triggers, the backstop, dependent on those things they say will happen? Like they say the corporate tax rate is too high in America. Let's lower the corporate tax rate, which will bring in all this money that's being offshored. Why don't we put a repatriation mandate trigger? Why don't we mandate that these companies come back? And if that's their logic, if that doesn't happen over a certain time, why is that not the trigger? As opposed to this idea of GDP growth or whatever they're looking at, which can be dependent on so many different factors. One of the main arguments against this is that you're trying to lower the corporate tax rate, and that will cause since companies have so much more money that they'll pour it back into the economy. But if you look at those giant corporations, small businesses, I've seen a small business is more likely to take a penny saved and move it into and invest it back in the company.
Every dollar the Young Turks have made, they put it back in.
Put it right back in.
Right.
Yeah, which is why I am terrified for its financial solvency every single day.
So there's a couple of other things. Senator John Kennedy, there should be a rule. You can't have a senator named John Kennedy.
Yeah, that's true. Senator John Kennedy.
It's like number 40, Jackie Robinson's number 42. It's been retired across Major League Baseball. John Kennedy, been retired in the Senate. You have a middle name, probably.
He's got to.
Let's say his middle name is
Bobby.
Kyle.
Bobby would be. Just can't.
Yeah, go ahead.
So he says it will pay for itself. I would not vote for this bill if I thought it was going to increase the deficit. So again, that gets to right. What do we think that is, Amber? Is that is that deceit or ignorance?
We don't believe you, and I think that's what a lot of these Republican senators have said. Like, well, if I didn't believe in this, I wouldn't do it. Give us a CBO score.
Yeah,
let's go through some hearings. Let's let the professionals tell us what this bill is about. And you're rushing it, and we don't care that you're working through Thanksgiving. You wouldn't have to if you weren't trying to rush this bill, this crappy bill, to get it to pass. So I don't care about your personal feelings. I'd like some evidence to prove that this bill really is as bad as we know it is.
Another thing along to that point, both James Lankford, a Republican of Oklahoma, and Jerry Moran, Republican of Kansas, they've both brought up the fiscal disaster in Kansas, led by Governor Sam Brown back there, that resulted from a slew of massive tax cuts. And then, and it's weird that what happened in Kansas was they cut taxes by all this money, and then the government of Kansas, it didn't have any money, right? And no one could have seen that.
In a similar move, I stopped putting gas in my car.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I was trying to get somewhere, it wouldn't go. It would not go. So they both say that the result from a slew of massive tax cuts is a cautionary tale that should not be repeated on the federal level. Well then, dudes, then don't repeat it.
Yeah.
Then don't repeat it.
If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.